Hi guys, Tom Barclay here outside Galatasaray's Rams Park Stadium in Istanbul. Trying to keep the lights out of the camera here after Tottenham's 3-2 defeat against Galatasaray in the Europa League, which was another mad game. I mean, just add it to the list of many crazy matches that Ange Postecoglou has brought to this team in terms of entertainment. It's just hard to sum up your thoughts after so many things happened, and trying to get my hearing back, to be honest, after the deafening noise that the Galatasaray fans produced throughout the game, particularly in the first half. Whenever Spurs had the ball, the whistles, it wasn't quite the welcome to hell that Man United once had, but yeah, the sound was pretty intense. You could understand if Besiktas in 2017 was anything like this, then when Timo Werner played there for RB Leipzig and asked for earplugs, I can understand. I definitely could have done with some today. There's some other stuff I want to talk about after the match. I want to talk about Hugo Lloris' interview, or his autobiography rather. It's been serialised in The Guardian afterwards, but we'll come on to that. Let's get into the game. So, as I said from the off, another mad game. I mean, how Spurs weren't sort of, not even 5-1 down, 6-7, like so many chances, mainly down to Fraser Forster and some wasteful finishing from Galatasaray's point of view. So they really struggled in the first half to handle a good Galatasaray team. Maybe a wasteful Galatasaray team, but they've got some good players. They look a better team. Not that I've studied Galatasaray too closely, but you know, I think most of us in England, the Galatasaray is having often players who are a bit past their best, you know, big stars from European football who then go to Turkey, and it's not like that isn't still the case. I mean, Dries Mertens had his better years in Napoli, although he was very good tonight. But they do have Victor Osimhen. Somehow they have Victor Osimhen, and he's really good, as he proved tonight. I mean, he actually missed a few chances, but the chances he took showed his quality. And Spurs struggled with that. I mean, he did rotate his team, as we expected, as he has done throughout, as he was kind of forced to be honest, Postecoglou, through injuries. I mean, 6 players were out missing. The back pair of Dragusin and Davis, the only players that could have played there, unless you wanted to play Gray in the middle. And then obviously Will Langshire starts up front alongside Johnson and Son. I don't think he would have wanted to start with his first choice wingers in this game, and they actually both came out at half time. But in the first half, they really sort of struggled to string past together at times, kept giving the ball away, and just looked like they were wilting a little bit under the pressure here at this quite magnificent stadium, to be fair. They obviously went 1-0 down through a wonder goal from Akgun, which forced I think he got a bit of a hand to it, but you know, had he got a proper hand to it, he might have broken his hand. It was such a great strike. So that was an excellent strike to put them ahead. Then, out of nowhere, Spurs got themselves back into it, and it was a brilliant moment. We'll come on to the not so good moment for Will Langshire, but a brilliant moment for Will Langshire on his second ever appearance, second appearance in professional football, let alone for Spurs. Obviously started the game with Ferencváros. It was a wonderful ball over top from Archie Gray, which Johnson come on to. Lovely first time sort of volleyed pass across the box. I guess Langshire couldn't really miss, to be honest, but he still stuck it away, took his goal well, fair play. Overall, I thought he, before he gets sent off, which I'll come on to later, I thought Langshire struggled at times, to be fair. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, he's only 19, like I say, second professional game against a really good side. You know, Davinson Sanchez, whatever you think of him from his Tottenham days, he's a physical defender who's got a lot of experience. It wasn't easy, but whatever happens, however he reflects on this in time, and I know I saw him walking through the mix, I know he looked pretty despondent after his red card, which again I'll come on to, but he'll still look at this as his first goal, so that was quite a moment for Will Langshire. But then after that, you know, for that sort of period off between that and by the time, to be honest, Langshire got sent off, and Galatasaray completely dominated. Osimhen could have had 4 before the half-time break. He had a goal disallowed, 2 great saves from Forster, who I thought from a shot-stopping point of view, which we know he's good at, to be fair, was excellent tonight on that front. But Osimhen obviously took 2 of his chances. One was a really clever first-time finish from a Dries Mertens through ball, which all came from Lucas Bergvall, in my opinion, taking away too many touches, too long on the ball, and then they suddenly lost possession, Spurs. And I just thought Bergvall particularly sort of struggled on that front tonight, and overall he just wasn't great. Wasn't surprised to see him come off. And then the other chance was a well-taken goal as well. Then after the break, a header he should have put away, another great save from Forster. So wow, I mean, really could be having 4 or 5 goals tonight, Osimhen. And then there was a host of chances from Galatasaray, just couldn't score. And then the Langshire moment comes up. And the first one, he's gone up for a header, he's got his elbow out, he's hit the... I had no replays where I was, so if any of this is not quite as accurate as what I see on TV, that will be the reason, but I think it was a pretty fair yellow card. And then 7 minutes later, the ball comes to him when Spurs are having a bit of a break, and he just can't control it. It goes down a bit of a blind alley, loses the ball, and from that sort of moment, he tries to win it back and takes out trips the old Norwich midfielder Gabriel Sara and gets the second yellow, and he looked pretty gutted when he came off. Weirdly, and this is what Postecoglou talked about after the game, Spurs were better with 10 men. Probably to the fact that they started bringing on their big hitters at that point. I guess Postecoglou was worried about getting thrashed, and the likes of Solanke came on, the likes of Kulusevski and Bentancur came on at half time. I thought those three made an absolutely massive difference. Bentancur was really, really good, great in possession. Kulusevski, I mean, we wax lyrical about him all season, but the way he gets his body in front of defenders and turns out of tight situations is up there with any player at the moment. And Solanke looks like a man really, really high on confidence. Took his goal brilliantly, lovely ball, crossed the ball from Porro, and then a little clever back heel flick to make it 3-2. And then it was very Postecoglou Spurs, a bit like that Brighton game where they ended up losing 4-2 or 4-0 down last season, but almost somehow came away with a draw. It felt a similar sort of vibes here, where they should have been comfortably out of the game. And then there were chances, and there was one moment where Sarr was breaking through, and all he had to do was play a relatively straightforward pass through to Kulusevski. Then Kulusevski and Solanke looked like they were going to be in, but his pass was poor. And I was watching Postecoglou from my very high vantage point looking down, and he was going absolutely nuts after that. He was going apoplectic. Just he knew there was a chance there to sort of steal a point. And it was a weird game, and then that Galatasaray almost felt they were kind of hanging on towards the end. But overall, I think they were still well worth their win for their first half performance, and just Osimhen being such a class player. I mean, I think overall all of us in England are just sort of baffled as to why he is here, given he's a world-class player. Not to denigrate Turkish football, but look, it was only last week that Jose Mourinho was talking about how no one watches it. Galatasaray looked like a really good team who could go a long way in this competition. And a Champions League team really is what they looked, and there's a reason why they haven't lost this so far this season. And yet, but Osimhen still feels like a kind of player who should be playing for Real Madrid, should be playing for Man City, obviously Haaland and Mbappe, but like a top team like that. And it is kind of curious how he's here, but he's obviously a top player. That probably sums up the game, so to speak. I say that, I mentioned Bergvall as well. I thought he was particularly disappointing. He's a player who, when I interviewed Pap Sarr earlier this season, he was the one that he highlighted, Sarr on Bergvall that is, as being like the real sort of gem to have come to the club. And we know he's got talent, but it's obviously a different level. And I can't say I've watched too many of his performances so far and been sort of seen what Sarr's been talking about. He clearly got technique, and I think could still be a top player, but it would be nice for him to start stepping up. He's getting a lot of opportunities and a lot of faith from Postecoglou, but this one was going to be a tricky one. On to Ange's comments after the game. He was pretty fair, to be honest. He didn't sort of try to gloss over a poor first 60 minutes just by the fact that they somehow almost snuck away with a point towards the end. He said it was a disappointing result, and based on basically a disappointing first half where they really struggled in possession. They didn't handle the atmosphere well, or didn't handle things well. Gave the ball away way too much and were punished by a good team. As I said, Mertens, Icardi, Osimhen obviously, but they've got other good players, Galatasaray, and that was what happened. He talked about how actually felt they played better with 10 men, better football at least. And on Lankshear's red card, he said, on performance, he said he worked hard, he took his goal well, and he learnt a lot, and he just put the red card down to over-enthusiasm, and then interestingly pivoted, unprompted, straight into sort of how Bergvall himself had a bit of a moment to a learning curve tonight, sort of summing up how he presumably wasn't too happy with him either. And then went on to talk about But he did highlight Archie Gray. He said he was great, and I thought Gray was really good. I mean, lovely ball for that goal, which I think, he's obviously playing in defence, but we all presume that his long-term position is going to be holding midfield, and that ball there for Johnson sort of summed up or captured exactly what kind of quality he's got on the ball, which he can only hopefully grow from here on that, and that could. There was, a window into what he might be able to produce when he's a bit more a bit older, a bit more experienced, and starts getting opportunities in that midfield role. Just final thought on from the game, just on the bench. He didn't come off the bench, but Ange named 3 teenagers in his starting lineup: Bergvall, Langshire, and Gray, but also 3 teenagers on the bench: Dorrington, Olesesi, I'm pronouncing it right off the top of my head, and Luca Williams-Barnett, who deserves a special mention. He's a player that people are very excited about, it seems, in the Spurs Academy, but he literally only turned 16 on October the 1st. Only 16 on October the 1st. That's like 5 weeks ago. And he's here. He didn't come off the bench, but he's here at a match. He should have been in school today. That was literally what he was supposed to be doing. He's so highly rated that he was here with the first team. I can't claim to have known too much about him before tonight, but I've read up on him. I've asked the Spurs team about him. They've given us some interesting information about him. He's England under-17 international already. He scored a hat-trick against Man United under-18s relatively recently, and scored from the halfway line against West Ham. And he's not a bit funny to call him the new Mikey Moore already. He's only a year younger, but he's a similar position, plays across the front line, and he's someone that they're very excited about. So that was a nice moment to see him on the bench, I guess, if you're looking for positives from tonight. And then just finally to move on, Hugo Lloris, obviously Tottenham captain for a long time here, 12 seasons, didn't win anything in the end, but obviously won the World Cup with France, got to the Champions League final, I think 447 appearances, like a big part of Tottenham's Premier League history. Has done an autobiography which he's serialising in The Guardian, and some fascinating points he made today in this particular segment that got serialised in The Guardian. So a few points. The first one was about kind of having a bit of a swipe, to be honest, at the chairman Daniel Levy for giving Spurs players watches that were engraved before the Champions League final, which were etched with the message of Champions League finalist 2019. And Lloris felt that was just the wrong kind of mentality to get before a final. Maybe afterwards, after they've won it, hopefully, but he just basically was suggesting that it was not the right thing to do at that particular point, and was having a bit of a dig, to be honest. Then he went on to talk about the actual final itself. First of all, he talked about the penalty that they conceded famously after 2 minutes. The ball sort of ricochets up to Moussa Sissoko's hand, saying how it still frustrates him that the following day, literally June the 2nd, game was on June the 1st, the rules changed and that wouldn't have been a penalty anymore, and that basically killed them. But he said afterwards, in the hotel afterwards, he got the sense that if some players and some people at the club weren't too bothered about the defeat, or weren't bothered enough in his opinion, and kind of made him question the mentality, how much they really wanted to win at this club, which, whatever people are going to think about that within the club, he was a big part of this club. So I think he's earned the right to have his opinion, and it's up to fans to take away what they think about that. But food for thought, I suppose. And then he also talked about, he essentially criticised the decision for the Amazon documentary, kind of suggesting it kind of made the players feel uncomfortable, and that none of the players or the coach at the time had any say in having it happen, which was quite interesting. And then finally on to Antonio Conte, where he basically said that everything that you saw on the touchline from Antonio Conte, and everything you thought about Conte and the way he presented himself, was the same behind closed doors. He was, what was the phrase, as extreme and as eruptive as he seemed, and how essentially Conte struggled to contain the torment he felt when the results started to turn, and made it quite a difficult place for the players to be around. How wingers would often not want to be on the side of the dugout when playing, just to be away from him. And particularly after the Moura defeat, he was incensed apparently in the dressing rooms. Why Moura? Why? I don't know, who are Moura? He was saying, and apparently Lloris can still hear him now for saying that. So it was just quite interesting. Not a complete surprise. Conte is obviously known for being a serial winner, but also a difficult character when things aren't going well, and that was what proved to be the case at Tottenham. But just fascinating to hear it firsthand from Lloris, as often is the case with these biographies, really giving his thoughts as he really felt them. To be honest, Lloris, in my brief time when I was covering Spurs, when he was there, always seemed to front up after games, but was often in the sort of, captain's role, politician's role of giving the kind of just about the right amount of insight into how, after a bad defeat, of what the team should do better. But this was really, this felt like no holds barred, what he really felt about the situation. So fascinating stuff. Just to round it up, going to be heading back to the airport now to fly home. Obviously there's Ipswich on Saturday, there's a press conference tomorrow. I won't make the press conference, but I won't be doing a video after the game on Sunday because it is my best mate's wedding this weekend, of which I am the best man. So wish me luck with the speech, and I'll catch up with you, I guess, after the international break. I'll probably do some stuff in that time, just think of some features, some interesting things, sort of talking points of where we're at in the season. But if you're expecting any videos sort of in the lead up and after the Ipswich game, that'll be the reason why there won't be any. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.